Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good day, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Yes, welcome, Cassie. Welcome. We're going to give people a couple of more minutes to settle in, to join. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for saying hello in the chat. And so settling a little bit more. Thanks. I love when people just hop in and say hello. So lovely. Ooh, New Jersey. Thank you. Thank you, Erica, Shell, Kimberly, Erica, Jenny. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Yeah, so I think we can kick it off. So like I said, thank you for joining us wherever you are, morning, afternoon, late in the night. Welcome. We'll be sharing the slide and FAQ document after, and we're also recording. So we'll be sharing the recording of this after this webinar. So thank you for joining. We're so super excited to have so many of you that you're interested in the learning about the National ECE Workforce Center Integrated Research and Policy Fellowship. My name is Tobias Jomo, and I support the fellowship program here at CSCCE. And like I said earlier, we'll be sharing the slide and the recording and FAQ document. So all of this information will be shared with you after this webinar. And you can also check our website that Elena just put in the chat to have more information. We're super duper excited to kick off the second cohort of the fellowship program. And the first cohort is currently going on right now. They started in May 2024. So yay, thank you and welcome. So next slide, please. So here is the itemized agenda for our time together today. In the next 1 hour, we'll go over the National ECE Workforce Center overview. We'll do like a fellowship program overview, which includes the goals and objective, the shared learning together that we'll be doing elements, the structure and activities together, the calendar of our time together during the fellowship program year, capstone project, and we'll also be going over the eligibility criteria as well as the application materials and details for that. And we'll be going over next step and the recruitment process as well. And so just not to forget some housekeeping reminders that this is only a listen mode webinar, sorry, and a recording slide will be shared right after. There's also closed captioning, so you can click on the CC that is right after raise your hand to also kind of listen in and read the words as we speak. Also, don't forget to, the slide before, Cindy, sorry about that. And don't also forget that we'll be sharing the slide after this webinar. So, yeah, I think I'm done. And remember, we'll also be doing Q&A sessions. So remember to please only use the Q&A to drop in questions. Sarah from Child Trends will be helping us monitor the Q&A session. But please, any Q&A any question you have should be dropped in that box and not in the chat, because as you see, the chat is flooded and it will be hard for us to keep track of important questions after. And we'll try so hard to make sure we attend to all questions, but if we don't, the FAQ document right after this webinar will contain some of those key questions that come up. Next slide, please. So the National Early Care and Education Workforce Center is funded by the Administration for Children and Families, ACF, of the United States Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, and the resources and products developed by the National ECE Workforce Center do not necessarily represent the overview or the official view of, nor an endorsement by ACF, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, or the U.S. government. Next slide. So the National ECE Workforce Center is a joint research and technical assistance center that provides state and local leaders to drive change in ECE workforce policies. We aim at supporting and advancing the well-being of the ECE workforce by using a research to practice model. Through our research to practice model, we ensure that the research we do is for the purpose of informing policy and practice, and that we are learning from technical assistance that inform future research activities. And also that we're doing this in concert with educators and those closest to the field and working on the ground. The RTP Loop is at the heart of the Workforce Center and the fellowship program in general. We're also committed to establishing equity and justice for the ECE workforce by addressing the fundamental needs for change to ECE career advancement systems, the compensation, and workforce policies. Next slide, please. The center was launched in 2023 and is comprised of 5 core members, partner organizations, which is the which is the Center for the Study of Childcare Employment. We have Child Trends, the University of Delaware Institute of Excellence in Early Childhood, the University of Massachusetts Institute for Early Education, Leadership, and Innovation, and 0 to 3. We also have 9 collaborating partners all over the country, and all the information about all of these partners can also be found on the website. Next slide, please. So creating equitable conditions for the ECE workforce requires multiple and integrated strategies and not one size fits all. The National ECE Workforce Center organizes its work around these 5 key policy areas that are essential to supporting the workforce, and they were created by the Center for the Study of the Childcare Employment, CSCCE. Which, with the knowledge knowing that compensation and career advancement represent the most pressing needs of the field and are most closest tied to the systemic inequities, we are currently prioritizing our work on this area. And this area includes, first, we include compensation and financial relief strategies, which are initiatives and investment to ensure compensation equal to the value of early educators' work. We also have financial resources, which are public investment in the ECE workforce and also broader ECE system at large. And we also have work environment standard, which refers to standard for providing safe and supportive work environment for early educators. We also have qualifications and educational support, which are policies and pathways that provide consistent standard for educators to achieve higher education. And lastly, we have the workforce data, which is a state-level collection of important data and information on the size, the characteristics, and working condition of the ECE workforce. Next slide, please. I will now quickly kind of introduce all of us here at the National ECE Workforce Centers that support the fellowship team. My name is Toby Adejimo, and I support and coordinate the National ECE Workforce Center's fellowship team. I am here at CSCCE, which is Center for the Study of Childcare Employment at University of California, Berkeley, and 3 other members of the fellowship team are also housed at CSCCE. We have Elena Montoya, who will be presenting with me today. She's also here at CSCCE and the director of the fellowship team. And we have Abby Coburn-Pertich and Leah Austin. And we have Sarah Amadon is also part of our team. She's housed at Child Trends and who is also here to help support us at supporting Q&A session. Next slide, please. And I'll be handing it now to Eleanor to talk about the fellowship program.
Thank you, Toby. As Toby said, my name is Elena Montoya. Before we get into the details, just a reminder to please be putting your questions in the Q&A as we go along, and we'll be answering those after our presentation. And again, we will be sharing the recording of the webinar and slides, and everyone who is registered for the webinar will get that email. Next slide, please. So we want to start off by telling you a little bit about the program itself and the goals. And the fellowship is focused on building research and policy analysis capacity in the ECE field, supporting the leadership development of individual fellows, prioritizing those who have been furthest from opportunity, and supporting fellows to build their expertise about the ECE workforce while gaining skills to integrate research and practice in their own work. Next slide, please. As Toby mentioned, equity is a guiding principle of the National ECE Workforce Center. And as such, in order to disrupt historical patterns of exclusion from fellowship and leadership opportunities in the field, the selection criteria and process for the fellowship will prioritize certain populations, and that is candidates who are either emerging scholars and leaders with expertise in BIPOC communities, those from historically under-resourced communities, first-generation college students, those living in areas with limited access to decision-making systems, or those living in areas with limited access to institutions of higher education. Next slide, please. So the fellowship program is integrated and it's designed for shared learning across research and policy. We have 2 tracks that each have 2 fellows, and so we'll have 2 research fellows and 2 policy fellows. However, all fellows will engage in all program activities together. We are really emphasizing shared learning across research and policy. And this will allow us to support research fellows to really learn to design and implement policy relevant research, and for the policy fellows to be supported to utilize research and data and policy analysis and implementation. This will be a year-long program. It will begin for this next cohort in February of 2025 and run through January 2026. And it is really designed to be a part-time fellowship that allows the fellows to continue participating in their employment or their studies. Fellows can expect to dedicate about 15 to 20 hours per month to fellowship activities. The program includes 1 in-person convening, which is all expenses paid, and all other activities will be remote. And each fellow will receive a stipend of $12,500. And just want to note that fellows will be responsible for reporting this as income on your taxes. Next slide, please. Through the program, fellows will learn about key issues across the 5 essential areas of workforce policy that affect the workforce and that Toby reviewed earlier. And you'll also learn about the history underlying the current system. You'll gain skills in communication and translating research to practice, and we'll produce a capstone project, which we'll discuss more in a few moments. Research fellows will gain skills in research and have the opportunity to conduct research for their capstone, while policy fellows will gain insights into the policy process and identify opportunities to use data and research to influence policy. And all program participants, that's including fellows, mentors, and the host site partners, will have the opportunity to build social capital, expand their networks, and for ongoing collaboration with each other. Next slide, please. So we want to take a minute to go over the eligibility criteria for each track. So those that are interested in the policy track must be currently employed as either an early educator or employed by an organization in the fields of ECE, education policy, public policy, labor and employment, or a closely related field. And at least 1 policy fellowship will be designated for an early educator. And by early educator, we mean those that are currently teachers or assistants in childcare centers, or currently family childcare providers or assistants. By early educator, this also means somebody who is currently in a related role, such as directing a childcare center or working as an instructional coach, but who has been in a direct teaching or care role within the last 3 years. We do tend to get a lot of questions about this. We just do want to clarify that, well, 1 policy fellowship will go to an early educator, that the other one is open to other applicants that are working in related fields, even if you are not directly working with children. And all applicants must have the full support of their organization. Next slide, please. For the research track, those applying must be currently enrolled in some level of graduate study, and that can be either at the master's or doctoral level in ECE or related field. You must be enrolled in your program at the time of application and throughout the duration of the program. Those that are residing in the US on a student visa are welcome to apply. However, the opportunity does not provide sponsorship. Those applying to the research track must demonstrate foundational research skills, and you can do this by, we'll ask you to upload a transcript that shows completion of at least one graduate level course in research methods or statistics. And you must have the full support of your research or academic advisor. And I'm gonna pass it back to Toby.
Thanks, Elena. Okay, so now we're gonna go over some shared elements of the fellowship program. And this is kind of integrated, a way to integrate both the research and policy fellows and ensure those research and practice loop connections that we talked about earlier. So the majority of the fellowship program activity will be the same for both the research and policy track, and just the main area of difference will be around the specifics of the capstone project. So the shared element include joint learning activities. All fellows will have a supervisor who will guide capstone project and also a field mentor. For the capstone project, fellows will present their work to each other and possibly other forums such as the early leadership development board or to core partners of the National ECE Workforce Center. There will also be connections and networking opportunities with the past and future cohort, and fellows will be paid a stipend of $12,500, like Helena said before. Next slide, please. So fellows will be supervised by dedicated staff at the host sites. So one will be Center for the Study of Childcare Employment and Child Trends. And supervisors will work with fellows on a routine basis to guide the capstone project and be the main point of contact for fellows. Next slide, please. Each fellow will have a mentor who is a leader in the ECE field. Through this one-on-one mentoring component, we aim to bridge and build imagine an established leader connection that can serve as a way to deepen participant understanding of the ECE system and to kind of encourage a transfer of knowledge within the field. Mentoring relationship can serve as a safe place to help fellows extend their own critical thinking skills and also build those connections. Fellows will meet with their mentor 4 times during the duration of the fellowship program, and mentors will be invited and encouraged to attend the capstone project presentations. Mentors will help facilitate individual fellows' professional development as well. Next slide, please. For networking, fellows will network with one another as well as with mentors in the field, utilizing different networking platforms to share research and their work, to discuss upcoming professional development opportunities, to highlight conferences that they're attending, and also to connect with each other in and outside of the fellowship program. And each new round of fellows will be connected to their predecessors, kind of like a way to build a network of ECE workforce research and policy fellows. And we'll also be inviting past cohort to events of the current cohort, such as presenting at their capstone projects. Next slide, please. So fellowship program activities will include approximately a dedicated 15 to 20 hours per month to the fellowship program. Fellows will attend 1 2-hour online sessions where the first cohort will be presenting their capstone project, and that will be in February. And as mentioned earlier, we are kind of excited to be recruiting fellows for the second cohort of the fellowship program. And we're really eager to let this first cohort to kind of integrate into fellowship program by hearing the project's capstone project presentation of the first cohort. And they will also be participating in 1 half-day online kickoff event, and as well as attend a 1-day in-person meeting with an optional dinner the evening before that. And all travel expenses for this in-person meeting will be paid for. And I saw a question in the chat earlier about where this will be, and here it is. It's going to be in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and we're really timing it to be incongruent with a very detailed conference in the ECE Workforce, which is the 2025 National Early Childhood Education Workforce Campaign, which is happening in April in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And as well, fellows will be participating in 8 90-minute online learning sessions throughout the duration of the fellowship program. And we really encourage that people not miss no more than one session throughout that program. And they will also be ending the program by participating in a 1 half-day online session to present their capstone projects and say bye-bye to the program. And hopefully by then we'll be recruiting for third cohort, and also the third cohort will be attending their capstone project as well. So exciting. Next slide, please. And okay, so this is just like a very quick overview of all of the activity calendar, and we're really hoping you please take note of these days, the timing, and make sure this all align with your own personal or professional schedule and timeline for 2025. Yes, I just said that, 2025. So it's going to be key date. We're having, like I said before, the capstone presentation of the first cohort in February. We do like a kickoff meeting together in March, the in-person convening in April, and you can see the outline of each session of the learning sessions together until the end of November. Then January 2026, yes, 2026, we'll be doing the capstone presentation, and we'll be also concluding cohort 2 program. So please take note of this for your own personal scheduling. Now I'll pass it on to Elena to roll us over.
Thank you, Toby. Next slide, please, Cindy. Great. So as Toby mentioned, the majority of the fellowship activities are undertaken together by all of the fellows, except for the capstone, which will be an individual project. Next slide, please. So every fellow will individually conduct a capstone project that bridges research and practice, and fellows will explore a question, topic, or policy related to the Workforce Center's priority areas. And for the next year, these will include career pathways, compensation, and work environments. I did see a couple of questions, and we can go into more detail during the Q&A about the topic of the capstones. Capstone supervisors will work with fellows to co-design capstones and really ensure that the capstone projects are aligned with the work of the National ECE Workforce Center. And so depending on your interest in what you're working on, there may be a fair amount of alignment, or it might be something new to you. You will be able, like we said, to co-design this with your supervisor, but there will be some, we'll just make sure that it's aligned with the broader work of the National Center. And as we said, policy fellows will utilize research and data to inform their policy question, and research fellows will design and implement policy relevant research. Next slide, please. And as part of their projects, all of the fellows will engage with educators, and this is to ensure that they're understanding the lived experiences and ensure that the educator expertise is there. They will also apply an equity lens in examining their policy or research question. And everybody will develop a product that includes a series of recommendations for policy and future research, and they will give a presentation of their project. And products may include, for example, a brief report, a series of infographics, or other visual representation of their work. Next slide, please. You can go ahead and go to the next one. Thank you. So first, we want to briefly review the eligibility criteria. Those interested in the policy track must be currently employed as an early educator or in an organization in a closely related field to ECE. Research fellows must be currently enrolled in some level of graduate study in ECE or related field. And all fellows are expected to have the full support of their advisor or organization to participate. Next slide. So the entire application should take approximately 30 to 45 minutes. The link to the application is available on our website. I think Toby can add it to the chat now if that's still open. The application form, the first thing will happen, it will ask you to indicate which track you're interested in applying for, either the research or policy. And then there will be a couple of questions on each track that are specific to that track. You'll provide basic information, including your contact information and what your educational or professional status or role is. You'll confirm that you're able to participate in all of the activities of the program. and everybody will answer 2 short answer questions, and we'll tell you what those are in just a moment. And those are questions that you can answer right within the form. And you'll also have the opportunity to indicate EC leaders that you would like to engage with during the program as either instructors for the learning sessions or as mentors. And finally, you'll have an opportunity to tell us more about yourself. Next slide, please. There are a couple of documents that you'll be required to upload. So every applicant must include a CV or a resume that's no longer than 2 pages. For those that are interested in the research track, your resume should include information about your research skills and or responsibilities. All applicants must provide a letter of support from either your employer or your advisor. And we provide templates for those letters on the website and within the application form. If you are a family childcare or other small business owner that is applying for the policy fellowship, you can sign your own letter. There's no other signature that you'll need. And only for those we're applying for the research track, we'll ask you to include a transcript, which can be unofficial, that shows completion of at least 1 graduate level course in research methodology. Next slide, please. So these are the 2 short answer questions. All applicants will be asked to respond to this first question, which asks you to describe how you envision that your participation will contribute to your own professional goals, particularly in relation to EC workforce policy. Those applying to the policy track will be asked to identify the most pressing equity issues in the EC workforce and to describe 1 or 2 policy changes that would address these issues, and to explain your reasoning for those changes and their potential impact on the equity concerns that you've highlighted. And then those applying for the research track will be asked to consider what you see as the most pressing issues facing the EC workforce, to describe 1 to 2 research questions you'd like to explore to address these, and to provide a brief explanation of the design and potential data you could use to answer this question. And just a note that we can only consider applications that are complete, that include all of the attachments and information that we're requesting, and that do not go over the word or page limits. And I will now hand it back to Toby.
Okay, thanks, Elena. Thank you for carrying us through the finish line. So now we're kind of going over what's next after this information webinar. Now you've been here, so what's going to happen next? We're also trying to emphasize that this recruitment process and the application process will be guided by equity-driven application review process, and we are really evaluating all of the application, honoring the diverse ways of knowing and learning and leading within early childhood community. But moving forward after this webinar, we will be sharing the FAQ and the recording and the slides, so you have all the information you need before the end of the week. And just to note that November 6th, the webinar, the application will be closing, so please just take note of that. And interviews will be held between December 16 and 18 of this year and January 6 and 13 of next year. So any applicant that move on to the next level will be reached out to via email they provided to be told the days they are invited for an interview. And final fellows will be notified of their, of their application process by January 29, 2025. Next slide. Yay, so now we're going to go over all the questions in the chat if we have any that we haven't really answered yet. And I'll be handing it over to Sarah to help us coordinate that. Thank you all.
Hey all, and lots of great questions. I think we've covered a lot of them, but I'm going to go through a few that are a little more nuanced. And first, I will also say, if you really broadly, if you have questions about your eligibility and about which track to apply for, I think we in general encourage you to thoroughly review the application materials and the description of the track. We do answer a lot of questions in there, but in general, if you are applying for the research track, the expectation is you are currently in graduate school and that you will be for the duration of the program. So if that doesn't fit you, then you would be on the policy track. We also do expect that you would be employed on the policy track. You don't have to be employed full-time. We'll be accepting one fellow that will be an ECE educator, but you do not have to be an ECE educator to apply for the policy track. You could be a director, and if that means you direct your own program, you will need to we recognize there is a letter that is required. If you have a board or any sort of parent advisory committee, you could think about getting some sort of letter acknowledging that. The main reason we have those letters is to make sure that all fellows have the time to fully commit to the program, and that your graduate supervisor or your work supervisor or whoever else kind of helps to manage your workflow is aware of the expectations and time commitment of the program. So that's the rationale. So it's up to you if you are a policy fellow to determine the appropriate track to apply for and letter you need for that. In terms of research, so as you're filling out your application as a research fellow, we want you to indicate your own interest in the program and some knowledge and interest in researching in these policy areas of the Workforce Center. However, when you are a fellow, you will work with your supervisor in identifying that research project. And so that is why, research that you work on as part of the center might look different. That's what the answer to that means. We do not have specific research projects that we will have in our mind. But that is something, that is kind of what that comment means. So it will be a co-created process and project with your supervisor. Okay, that's one question. Our first cohort of fellows have not finished the program, so we cannot answer what the career trajectory will look like. I can tell you that their networking and the people that they've been able to work with and kind of get insights from has certainly increased. So just keep that in mind. So we don't know yet, but I would say that I think it will be a positive step if you are on this call and you are really interested in focusing your career on ECE workforce compensation policy. Okay, a lot of the answers about selections have been addressed and announcements. So yeah, last year we did have, I think, around 200 applicants or so. We do have 4 fellows. It was the first year of the program. We will not be having any more fellows this year. We have 4 again. And so it is a competitive program, or it was the first year. That doesn't mean we don't want you to apply. That's just something to be aware of. But again, we just had 1 year of the fellowship. So as a researcher, I can say that as a small sample size, but please go ahead and yeah, we encourage anyone who is interested and has a passion in this field to apply. We do provide matches for your mentor and your supervisor. However, we do ask if you have someone in the field you would be eager to learn from for a mentor, there is a field for entering that in your application. The audience for the end product is really meant to be kind of a research, policy, and practice audience to the extent possible. The goal of the center is to really translate research to an applied field. But I will say we do have communications experts that are part of the center. We also have templates and ways to help you make sure you kind of gear your end product for that field. I also will say there is an authorship policy as a part of the center that if you're awarded the fellowship, you will get to review before you accept the fellowship. But in general, the main rule of thumb is providing any funding acknowledgement. So any work you do as a part of the center, you'd have to acknowledge funding if it was done a part of the fellowship. This question about volunteering versus teaching, I don't know if Toby or Elena have an answer. I believe we do want people to be employed at the time that they are applying for the policy track or to be a graduate student for the research track. Toby or Elena, if you want to add anything, I'm not quite sure if you have anything else to add.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
You need to be employed, but if you're employed, but you're working as a volunteer in addition, that's great. But the idea is that you are employed either as an educator or in an ECE related organization.
Great. And I see if you're a child care provider consultant with your own LLC. I mean, again, use your judgment when with providing that employer support. You know, there will need to be some indication that you are active in your LLC. But again, you know, you can use your judgment. And I believe that Toby, or that we will put in the chat, there is an email account as well affiliated with the program. So if there's a really specific question that you cannot find in the FAQs or on the website, that then you want to follow up with, that is available as well.
Actually, Cindy, could you please advance to the next slide? I think that has the emails on there, and we can just have that up as we continue.
Okay. For the question about do leaders need to be within the ECE Workforce Center? No, they can be. I do believe this is really focused on US policy. So I would encourage you to find leaders in ECE Workforce or ECE policy, certainly ECE Workforce Compensation Policy, even better, in the US. There's one round of interviews.
And just, sorry, Sarah, to go back to the question around the leaders. And there, I think there's another question about it as well, but we're just trying to get ideas from the people who are interested in this fellowship about the types of people they would like to hear from. And again, it's not something that you have to go out and find if you don't have to answer this question, if nobody is coming to mind. So this is just a way for us to think through like who would be great instructors to bring into our learning sessions, who would be possible mentors that we could try to reach out to pair the fellows with.
Great. Thank you, Elena. Okay, so going on, you do not have to have a master's to apply for this program. That is not a requirement of the policy track. If you're applying for the research track, you would need your bachelor's or your master's, just because we expect you to currently be in grad school at the time. For the question about transcripts, unofficial transcripts are fine. You don't need to get official transcripts. For your question about starting a new job in November, we would encourage you, if you know where the job is, to get in a commitment from your employer. If for no other reason, then it's for your own benefit as well. It is expected that you devote dedicated time once a month, and then during that period in, I believe it's April, so you're going to need to be able to commit to those time points. You can only apply to one fellowship program that we are very firm on, so you really need to pick one fellowship program. I'm not quite sure if I understand the question. How do you suggest indicating idea toward a project versus co-creating with a supervisor? The application, you're meant to show that you have some interest and growing expertise, at least in an area of ECE workforce or ECE workforce compensation policy. So, but that doesn't mean the idea you propose will be the one you work on with your supervisor. So I wouldn't overthink this too much. Just know in your application, you have to know some interest and some working knowledge of certainly research methods and things like that, but doesn't mean that that is what you're going to be doing as a part of your capstone. Okay.
And that compensation is a huge issue for the National Center right now, but the other big topics
yes,
that we're working on are career pathways and work environment.
Yeah, thank you, Elena. Sorry, I keep saying compensation. I was working on something related to compensation this morning. So yes, there are other areas. So sorry about that. Thanks, Elena. For the questions about the completion of the fellowship, I would just go ahead and review the website. I think we covered a lot of that today. We do discuss pretty comprehensively the monthly and time expectations and what it will look like. But generally it is, you need to commit time, and then you need to commit some energy, and you need to commit some, thinking and other aspects to it as well.
See some questions.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Elena. No, please chime in. There's a lot of questions in here coming in, so the more the merrier.
The interviews will be conducted virtually, and they'll be about 45 minutes long. let's see. There's a question here about will there be future years? And yes, there will be. The National ECE Workforce Center is funded for 5 years at least, and so there will be a fellowship cohort each year. So we will be recruiting again at some point in probably towards the end of 2025 for another cohort.
There's a question about for the policy track, what's the highest level position? I don't think we have one. I don't know. Do you?
No, we don't. So if you're
Yeah.
interested, we encourage you to apply.
Okay. No, you cannot apply to both tracks. I think we've answered that before.
There's a question about the stipend and how it's paid. That goes directly to the fellow. If there is a reason that you would need it to go to the employer or organization, reach out to us. We just have to make sure that we can make that work, but in general, we pay those directly to the fellow.
There's a couple questions about either the state or can you focus your capstone or on state or national policy? And it can be, there's no predetermined. This is a national center. I don't believe that means that you have to do a project that is national in scope. You can do regional, state, local. That's fine.
Great. And I am noticing there's a couple letter questions in the chat I want to make sure we get to. So again, there's 4 fellows. There'll be 2 research and 2 policy fellows in this next cohort. And we'll notify people at the end of January. I think, okay, this person has 2 research and statistic classes in their bachelor's in clinical psychology. We need to see completion of at least 1 graduate level research course. I don't know, Sarah, if you want to add to that.
No, I'd say that's right. It's just mainly to demonstrate you're ready to hit the ground running independently to run your own capstone project. And then there's also a question about, can the work be used to politically support the EC workforce? And I would say no, you cannot use this stipend to serve in any sort of advocacy or political role. Elena, would you add anything to that?
That's right. The stipend it's for your participation, just to acknowledge the time and commitment you're giving to the program and to develop your expertise and to develop a product on the workforce. I see a question about postgraduates. If you're a postgraduate, you may be likely to apply for the policy fellowship, but to apply for the research track, you must be currently enrolled in graduate school.
You can apply with a BA, but then it would be in the policy track. Unless you're enrolled in grad school. You do not need a cover letter, I believe. Isn't that right?
Right.
Just
You don't need a cover
whatever
letter.
we say, you don't need anything in addition. In fact, we discourage anything in addition because we only review the things that are consistent. So if you add something else, we likely won't be reviewing it.
There was a question about if you are currently on a scholarship. And I just lost it.
Will it interfere with being selected?
No, not necessarily. You can apply. Toby, as we've been talking, do you see anything we've missed?
Courses in policy and advocacy don't count toward research methods. If that is what that question is asking. In the chat anyway. Okay, there's a question again about which track to apply for. I think we get a lot of these questions. I would say sit and reflect. If you are in graduate school, I would encourage you to do the research fellowship. Keep in mind that by and large, most of the fellowship activities are done jointly. Your capstone looks a little different. It does presume more research skills and more of a research-based project, but given that it doesn't, when we say research project, it is nothing approaching a thesis or dissertation. It is kind of more like an end of course project, I would say. Like, this is nothing, you know, that you would, again, that's not thesis or dissertation length. So I think that that is probably the best fit. Elena, would you add anything else? I know we get so many questions like this that they get a little hard to answer.
Yeah, we just really encourage you to think about which one your experience aligns more with, and also which one you think aligns more with your own professional goals. However, because this is really integrated, and again, all fellows participate in all of these activities together, they hear the same instructors, you'll be learning. The whole idea is for this to be research and practice integrated. And so we want both the research and policy fellows to gain skills related to using data in research and also related to policy relevant research and analysis. So I hope that helps.
Eleanor and Sarah, if you want to answer a couple of questions about stipend and what it's used for, who's getting it directly.
Sure. So my invoices are provided. I believe this is going to be the same. My invoices are provided. I'm sorry. Stipends are provided monthly. Fellows do need to invoice, however.
Not monthly. Sorry.
Oh, it isn't monthly?
No,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Okay.
I think it's
quiet then.
It's
Quarterly?
we're not quite sure, but it'll be,
Okay.
we're not quite sure.
Okay. Is it still the case they will, I know in the past they've had to submit an invoice, however, we provide a template for that invoice. Is that still correct?
Right. If
Okay.
we will need an invoice, we'll provide a template you can use.
And they've been quite straightforward, just describing kind of what
Right.
you've been doing. So attended virtual sessions, met with the supervisor, things like that. Yep. And it's not providing things like you don't have to track hours or anything like that. It's really quite a straightforward invoice if that will be still required.
I do see this question on the meetings being online in person and if there's homework. We do assign pre-reading for each learning session, just meant to, you know, bolster your knowledge before heading into that session. And there is sometimes some post-session work that we ask people to do, including engaging with the other fellows on discussion boards. Again, the 15 to 20 hours per month is inclusive of all of the activities. So that is attending the learning sessions, the pre and post work for those sessions, your work with your supervisor and on your capstone project. Am I forgetting anything, Toby? It's basically meant to be approximately across the course of the year, each month you'll dedicate about that amount of time to all of the activities.
Yes.
I want to say last year, how many interviews? Did we do 20 interviews? Does that sound right? Was it or 8 interviews? Sorry, someone asked how many we did last year.
Say it was like 14 or 16, something like that. Does that sound
Yeah,
right,
I think
Toby?
it was like about 8 for each
Yeah.
path. Yeah, 8 for each fellowship. We do not have testimonials from the cohort 1 fellows. I don't believe. And
But that is a great idea as we're kind of completing
thanks.
this first,
this
first cohort. Yeah.
But there are information on our website about their projects, their interests, their research. You can read more about them, kind of help you guide your own thinking of which one to apply for and how you fit into this program. So you can check the website.
And I want to say there were between 150 and 200 applicants last year. Does that sound right? I didn't look, but I think it was around there.
That sounds right.
Okay.
I think we got everything. Right?
There's one more question about research course. I mean, we would say we want to see successful completion of a research course. So that's the only thing to keep in mind. So I don't have really a firm answer there other than we do ideally want to see successful completion. So.
Please feel free to, if you're still confused about an answer we're provided, to send us an email. If you think of things later, send us an email. You know, take a look at the application form, and if things come up after you do that, please feel free to reach out. Again, we will share this, we will share the slides. The dates and times are all available on the website for all of the learning sessions, the in-person session, all of the activities. And we will also be sharing the FAQ, like Toby said, along with the recording and slides.
Yeah, and I think if you have a question, we would encourage you to take a look at the FAQ first. And if it's a question like what track, you know, we will not tell you which track. We will just kind of guide you in your thinking. So if it's something like that, we would just encourage you to try to review and think about what makes the most sense for your own, where you are currently and where you want to go. These are such great questions, lots of interest, which is exciting.
Exciting. Yeah.
Okay, just making sure we haven't missed anything, and it looks
Any
like
question,
we
yeah.
haven't. So thank you everyone so much for your interest and for joining. We hope you'll apply, take a close look at all of the materials, and I think that does it. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Bye. Cindy, you want to close us up? Thank you.